Hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. So this is gonna be a scary story that happened to me when I was 16 years old. It was the summer before my junior year of high school, and I was at home. My mom was working nights like she usually does, so it was just me and my dad in the house. My dad's a light sleeper, so he goes to bed pretty early. Usually around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, he's asleep. So for the most part, when my mom's not home, I have the entire house to myself. I had just finished watching a movie in my room with the door open because we don't really use doors in our house. And I was just scrolling through TikTok, minding my own business. Then all of a sudden I hear these really loud footsteps on the roof. Now, we have an attic in our house, and the only way to get up there is through a pull-down attic staircase in the hallway. The footsteps sounded like someone was walking right above me in the attic. But my dad was downstairs sleeping, and I knew that if he were to hear that, he would have woke up. So I thought, maybe it's just some raccoons or something. You know, we do live out in the country. So whatever it was probably some sort of animal. Then I started hearing what sounded like whispers and voices coming from the attic. At first, I ignored it, but then it started to get louder and more clear. I couldn't make out any of the words they were saying, but it definitely sounded like more than one person. Now, my curiosity got the best of me, so I walked out into the hallway and I looked up into the attic. The stairs were closed shut, but I could still hear everything very clearly. So I figured, why not? Let's go check it out. Maybe I can figure out what it is. So I walked over to the stairs, and I slowly started pulling them down. Each step creaked loudly, which made me even more nervous, because if whoever was up there heard the stairs starting to come down, then they would have time to run away. But then again, if they weren't making noise when I was doing that, then what were they doing up there in the first place? I pulled the stairs down all the way, and I flicked on the light switch, which didn't help because the bulb up there is burned out. So it was pitch black. But that's when I started hearing heavy footsteps near the stairs. Whoever was up there was now scrambling round. And being the idiot that I was, I decided to walk up there. As soon as I stepped foot into the attic, I heard a loud crash and then complete silence. For a moment, I was scared to move. I didn't want to make a sound and draw whatever was up there's attention. So I started to walk round. It's not like I had anything to lose by going up there. And if I did find whatever it was, then maybe I could scare it off. As I'm walking round in the pitch-black room, I start to bump into stuff. There's boxes everywhere. The last time I had been up there was probably when I was 7 or 8 years old. And the attic was filled with my old childhood toys. This was actually my dad's thing from when he was a kid. He just left them up here after he moved into our house. But now that I'm older, I can finally start going through his stuff. But back then, I was just trying to find the source of the noise. Finally, I found a corner where there was a beam of light shining through a small window that was boarded up. So I walked over to it, and I saw a pair of eyes staring back at me. I jumped back in surprise. Then I screamed as loud as I possibly could. The eyes ran off. I chased after them, but they disappeared. That's when I started freaking out. What was up there? Was it human or animal? And if it was human, then what was it doing in our attic? I ended up going downstairs and locking myself in my room for the rest of the night. I was too scared to go back up there and check on it. First, I tried calling my mom, but she didn't pick up. So I called her at work. She said that she was busy and asked me what was wrong. I told her that I heard footsteps in the attic and that there was some sort of animal or person up there. She laughed and said that it was probably just raccoons and to stop being so dramatic. But I insisted that there was something else up there. I could tell that it was a person. I ended up falling asleep in my room without even telling my dad about it. And the next morning after I woke up, I went straight up to the attic to investigate. Of course, everything was normal. There wasn't anything up there. And to this day, I still haven't gone back up there to clean up my dad's stuff. Well, fast forward a few years later. I am now 21 and I'm home for the summer. I had just gotten done mowing the lawn, and I went inside to take a shower. After I got out, I was going through some things and I noticed a screw that fell out of the wall. When I picked it up, it revealed a keyhole. I thought, I wonder if there's a hidden safe or something behind this wall. I never noticed this before. So I went into my dad's room, and I asked him if he put that there. He looked at it confused and said, no, he didn't. I asked him if he knew anything about it, but he had no idea. So I went to my old room to look for another key that might fit, but I couldn't find one that matched. This keyhole must have been made within the last 10 years, because I remember my dad putting that shelf up when I was little, and it definitely wasn't there then. Next, I went back into my dad's room, and I took out the other shelf that was in the corner. I found another keyhole, so I removed that shelf and found yet another keyhole. I was getting suspicious at this point, and I was scared to see what else I was gonna find. So I went to Home Depot and bought a small pry bar to see if maybe whatever this was nailed into the wall. It turns out that 3 of the keyholes were connected, and there was a small safe hidden behind the walls in my dad's room. It wasn't locked, though. It opened right away. And inside was a box of old photos and documents. I found my dad's birth certificate, social security card, old report cards and trophies, and a bunch of love letters addressed to my dad. But the scariest thing that I found was a handwritten journal. The leather cover had completely fallen off, but I could read the writing inside. It was my dad's diary. I felt really bad reading it, but I couldn't help myself. And as I was going through it, I learned some really disturbing things about my father. But I don't want to share those details because I feel like it'll ruin the channel if I start posting personal stories like that. Anyway, that is when I realized that the footsteps I heard in the attic that night wasn't my dad. He was asleep, and it was too loud to not wake him up. Plus, he wouldn't have been able to get up there because he doesn't know how to use the stairs. He has to use a wheelchair because he's disabled. So I don't know who it was that was up there. Maybe it was just some raccoons trying to build a nest, but I think there's something else going on. My dad was adopted. His biological parents gave him up for adoption, and he grew up with a different name than what is on his birth certificate. So I don't know if whoever was up in the attic was a relative of some kind. I don't know. To this day, I still don't have any answers. When I posted this story on social media, somebody commented and said that their mom did the exact same thing. She hid a box in the attic with all of her old belongings, including her diary. And she did it specifically so that her kids wouldn't read her diary. She wanted to keep that stuff away from them. But then one day her son went up there anyway, and he found it. So that's the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Bye.